Our top story tonight, some going down in November.
Wars, spending.
There has got to be something big a-brewing.
They're using geese to guard prisons in Brazil. Does Biden know what
Immigration
Mexico
policies.
is? Would you scare Joe Biden? What are we laughing at? I think
Butthole.
Billy Mays was real.
I'm a world-class skeptic.
I don't know anything about Hunter Biden. I don't know who's big into cocaine and laptops. Why is that our problem? Complete, absolute incompetence. Like, who funds the news? It's a freaking inside job, man. The entire world's a stage and everything's fake.
And welcome back, folks. Another episode of the Veritas Road. Carson and John here in the studio. We have a show we're both pretty excited about tonight, guys. We've got Tim from Sixth Sensory Pod here. What's up, sir?
What's up? Good to be here. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time to do it. I know we were dicks and actually had to cancel because we had soccer. I was like, what did we have? A soccer game or something like 8-year-olds, John?
Yeah.
That we had to do. So I'm very sorry about that.
That's fine.
So we've been playing dueling date books for a while now. Just really quick from the top, where can all the people find you? I know you're on the YouTube and at least one or two other places.
Yes, absolutely. Shout out to Neff Hunter. Just saw him pop up. Shout out to everybody else in the chat too. But you can find me at Sixth Sensory Podcast. I spell it out SIX. I'm on Spotify, YouTube, Patreon, and Instagram. Almost blanked out there on everything. The best place to find me is Spotify, and I have a Patreon. I could just throw that in there, I guess. But I think you guys have the links running up on the bottom of the screen there. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I tried to grab everything.
Yeah, I missed the Patreon for the show notes, but we'll put that in there afterwards.
Oh, not a necessity, my friend. But yeah, man, thank you guys for having me on and for reaching out and the reschedule. Not a big deal. I forgot all about that actually.
I shouldn't have said anything. Dang. So, well, I guess, do we have anything coming up that I even need to announce right now? Our schedule's pretty
Yeah, I don't think
clear.
so. Just show up every Tuesday.
Guys, every Tuesday, if you're new to the show, every Tuesday for Touch Me Tuesdays, we go live at 7 p.m. to talk about the things that touch me that week, and hopefully they touch you too. So I feel bad for subjecting our guests to that name, but live every Tuesday for Touch Me Tuesday, 7 p.m. Central Time, and we'll have more content coming. We're in the middle of trying to take down our studio and put it back up again later, so we're figuring that out. But tonight, Tim, thank you for taking the time. First question I always like to ask people, especially like we're pretty new to like having people onto the show. We're meeting a lot of people in this space. It's been a blast. Is like how did you wind up in this space? What was it that even put you in this headspace to begin with? Because I don't know a lot of people who roll out of bed in the morning and are like, you know what I'm going to do today? I'm going to do a 2.5-hour show on CERN. That's what I think I'm going to do. Or I'm going to do like a 5-hour show on John. Like, I don't know anybody that just does that. So like, what was that journey? How did that start? All of that.
Yeah. I guess I always had one foot in the conspiracy world, just always kind of half in. And because I remember liking Jesse Ventura Conspiracy Theory. I loved that show a lot. I got really into, and for years I'll listen to Art Bell, Coast to Coast. And I always thought that stuff was interesting. Of course, well, for me, I didn't wake up until 2020. That was the big moment. It was like the scales fell from my eyes in 2020. And I'm looking at everything that's happening around me, and I'm like, I'm seeing through it for the most part. I know that things are off, and I'm watching everybody else that I know fall for it. Yeah. They're falling for. Everybody got the, you know what, jabby jab. Right. Everybody was buying the official narrative. Everybody's like, at first is listening to everybody I knew just went and got the shot, man, except for me. I know one person. I know a lot of people who didn't get it now because I started podcasting, of course.
Right.
And
that'll open those doors.
That's what kind of pulled me into this community was seeing how a lot of the podcasters were reacting to everything that was going down and how they weren't buying it. And I'm like, oh, these people get it. This must be my crowd or something. So yeah, I guess there's a lot more to it, man. everybody has a journey. Everybody's on a course, their own course. God meets people where they're at and takes people different ways and all that. But so I left a lot out. But I think for me, it was like, yeah, it's just, I always was interested in the behind the scenes world, as I like to call it, and what's really happening behind the curtain.
Yeah.
And I just didn't know how to access that information.
Right.
I didn't know how to that was the thing when I was in 2012, when I was watching Jesse Ventura Conspiracy Theories. I watched that show every weekend, loved that show, didn't know where to go for more information on it.
Right.
The internet wasn't what it is now and all that. So I don't know. I guess it was just going to happen eventually to where I just went full blown red pill.
Right. Were there any was it really 2020 that kind of blew that up for you? Because I know for a lot of people, we actually just did like a Corona in review talk, I guess is what we ended up calling it. But I know for a lot of people, and John and I both said kind of the same thing. Like it was just so weird. I mean, obviously there was all the stuff going on with the jab and the lockdowns and everything that went along with that. But I think, and I don't want to speak for you too much, John, but for both of us, it was the degree to which every body and every organized entity, like all the government entities, etc., kind of moved in lockstep. It was almost like they were all kind of, I don't know, under the control of one person kind of at the helm, and it was just so weird. I know for a lot of people that kind of ripped the veil from their eyes, so to speak. What was it for you during that period that kind of shook you awake then?
Well, I wish I could bring my ex-girlfriend on and have her vouch for me, but because this is crazy. I went and bought a bunch of food and stocked up because I was watching the news and I saw what was happening in Wuhan. And before anybody over here was even noticing it, I was watching that and I was like, I just had a feeling that something crazy was going to pop off. So I went and got stocked up on all kinds of stuff. And she's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "You'll see, you'll see." And
you'll find out.
I think it was just like I had, you hear people use that word intuition, and I don't really want to use that word, but it was one of those type of things, right? And it was I guess it was just a God thing as well. And so I just had a hunch something was coming. And when I was on NDS, at one point I talked about this too, and they said they were feeling something too in the air happening, like that they had a sense that something big was about to happen in 2020. So I just had a notion that things were going to go crazy, go full apocalyptic, and they did. And I remember when the shelves were empty at the store, I was good. I didn't need, because I had already stocked up on everything I needed. And I went to the store though just to see it for myself. Walked in, walked around, went down some of the aisles, snapped a couple of pictures, thought, yeah, this is crazy, and went home and cooked a steak on the grill. I was out front of my house in Nashville with my gun on my hip, drinking. This was back when I drank, drinking gin and tonics, cooking steaks in the front yard.
Like a classy American right there.
Awesome.
Yes. That's awesome. Is there a bald eagle in the background just releasing a cry?
Because this was the reason for the gun. I'm not one of those guys that goes around and carries my gun everywhere with me, but this was like when things were getting real weird with the riots.
Yeah.
And we had some strange people driving around through our neighborhood just looking like they were scoping.
Right.
And a pile of bricks showed up right down the street from me randomly. And I'm like, I'm going to be out here and I'm going to be ready. I'm going to fight for my hood if I have to.
Yes.
So things got wild, man. And I don't know if I'm answering any of your questions right now, and I'm sorry for that, but there was a lot going on in that time period. Yeah. It's kind of hard to distill all of that down and all of the spiritual threads and the emotional threads, and it's hard to encapsulate. I mean, we all went through that, and it was a crazy time. But it was, like you said, it was like there was almost like a couple people at the very top that were orchestrating this thing, even down to the media. It's like They were all saying the same lines. You had all the commercials saying this is unprecedented times. All the commercials saying that.
Right. Yeah.
All the newscasters saying verbatim the exact same lines. And then now you get into these Epstein files and you see weird redactions. Somebody named Bill was planning something for a pandemic.
Yeah.
Bill who? Bill Gates, perhaps?
Maybe.
Probably, because those guys were hanging out with bioengineers and all this and that. It's all in the files. I've got some of the stuff here. I could find it in a second, but I think that it was orchestrated is what I'm getting at.
No.
Oh yeah. I mean, there's no way. That was one of those things where I just couldn't understand how just regular people down the street, people at Kroger, double masked up, didn't get it. Just the level of mass orchestration that had to happen to pull all that off at the same time across the board was, I mean, if you take the morality out of it, kind of magnificent and genuinely impressive. Like, to be able to do that and pull all that off all at once was insane.
Yeah.
Yes. So here you go. There was this part in the Epstein files that was talking about all these weird secret societies that Epstein was associated with. One was called the Order of the Golden Sphinx. And there was a guy from DARPA involved with that one alongside of Epstein. And this gets into Jeff Ling, who is the founding director of DARPA. And we know about DARPA. DARPA was like the OG Facebook.
Yeah.
They had that LifeLog. They had LifeLog. It was like, we're going to get all the people just to willingly show up in one place online and give us all their information. We'll call it LifeLog, but then they shut it down the next day. Somebody behind the scenes says, I think we're going with Zuck. Let's bring Facebook in. So DARPA was a part of that, if you ask me. And so DARPA's guy, Jeff Ling, is involved with this. And he's also, like I said earlier, he's involved with the biological technologies world. He's a part of a group there. And in the Epstein files, he's mentioned alongside Bill Gates. And I think if we were to dig a little bit further into that, I think that's how we find ourselves at the doorstep of maybe seeing how they orchestrate a pandemic. I really do. They had the giving pledge. There's all this stuff. It's an Epstein secret society that could have 100% could have orchestrated the whole thing. They had these weird philanthropic occult orders that they're a part of, where they're in the files. They're talking about how they wore robes and they were doing chants and acting just like an occult order would, except they are, the elite billionaire class,
right?
And they're doing it under the name of philanthropy,
right?
For the media, for the public vision, or how the public would see them. But behind the scenes, they're doing all this occult stuff, and it ties into David Hansen, who is he's also in the files. He's the Robo Epstein guy. He runs
Epstein guy.
Yeah, he has an AI named Sophia.
Oh yeah,
because it's a play on the Gnostic stuff.
Yeah, and
he is rumored to be. I've had several people tell me that he is in the OTO, but he's basically a guy with this AI firm, and they build robots, and they use a certain type of AI in the robot that's ever advancing. Like every day, it's like upgrading itself. It's constantly pulling in like the newest AI, tools of the day or whatever. But anyway, yeah, Robo Epstein. He in the files, he's talking to Epstein and saying, "Hey, we should build you a robot clone, Jeffrey."
Oh my gosh. Okay. Just build him a robot clone. Is that who Palm Beach Pete is? Did we figure that out?
Probably.
Is that Palm Beach Pete?
But I guess my point is like there's this talk in the files of somebody who was trying to engineer a pandemic, and they said his name was Bill, and then they redact the last name. I'm just assuming that it's Bill Gates, and you got this Jeff Ling and all these other guys involved with this. They could have actually pulled it off. That was my whole point with that, I guess. But
I mean, it seems like they have. Bill Gates has been so heavily involved in all that pseudo-scientific disease research. Damn it, I said it. Research for so long, and like he's been poisoning Africans for decades. Like who better than him to plan an event like that? You know, like yeah, he just seems like the obvious choice. I don't know.
Yeah. And they were showing him going out in Texas. I think it was outside of Austin, and he had a crowd of people out there, and he was talking to people, and they had helicopters flying by, and they were releasing mosquitoes. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
They're still releasing like they're doing the mosquito releasing thing. They're also releasing like a bunch of rabies vaccines allegedly just into the wild. Like what are you doing with all these?
What are you
What's in
doing?
there?
That's a needle in the form of an insect.
Yeah.
Bill Gates, we don't need Bill Gates next to or behind or working with anything involving needles anymore. Get him out of there.
Just ban him
release
from all
mosquitoes.
Syringe-related activity, and we may be okay. Yeah. Although he's buying up a frick ton of farmland too. Yeah. Like an outrageous amount of farmland is being bought up by their foundation. I don't know what the hell they're doing on that. And that was one like that was the avenue that I came to this whole side of things from, was like from the health and wellness side. It kind of Corona slapped me in the face with it, but even before that, like it was into all this research type stuff that led me down this lane, and it's that man is creepy. Yeah. I don't need to go much farther into that or I'll lose my mind. But yeah, that's terrifying.
Yeah. So man, a lot of nefarious stuff happening there behind the pandemic, behind the whole 2020 scenario. And it's what pushed me over the edge, because I saw everybody like a flock of sheep going one way.
Yeah.
And I went another way. And that crossed the Rubicon with that one. There's no turning back. I was either going to be a loner dude. And I love the health and wellness stuff too. I was already sort of getting into that world before, leading up to 2020. I was trying to get to where I could grow my own food. That never happened, especially when I started the podcast. I don't have time to do that. Maybe one day. But I was going to check out, man. I was going to totally check out. I was going to delete my social media stuff and check out. And I was going to keep the internet around just to start an online business. I wanted to do an herb tea shop. That was my plan.
Those are popular. Yeah.
And grow herbs, make specialty blends, and just try to get people healthy. That's what was going through my mind. And I started the podcast instead and never did that. But I was in that world too. So that's a whole other aspect to this, was how unhealthy I saw everybody get during that time.
Yeah.
A lot of people I knew from work just gained weight and got depressed.
Right. Well, in this time where everybody's allegedly like their immune systems are under fire, we're going to do all the worst things for your health. We're going to make you stay at home. You're going to eat fast food. You're going to eat takeout. You're going to not talk to people. Your relationships are going to go to shit because you haven't seen another real person in 6 weeks. Mom and dad are yelling at you because you haven't brought your grandkid over. Your wife hates you because she's just been talking to you for the past month and a half. She's tired of your face. Like it was such an unhealthy period of time, even for people who knew how to take care of themselves.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, cross the Rubicon, man. That's why I started the show. I was like, I'm starting to see things in a very different way than from most people, and I wanted to get online and talk about it. Wanted to sort of get it off my chest a little bit. That's how I got into podcasting. Maybe that was a long way around to answer that question, but that's what it was. And we were all there. We all remember it. It was crazy. And I think some of us are all the much better for it. I think some of us are, it shaped some of us. It hardened us.
Yeah.
Iron sharpens iron.
Yeah. Me especially, because it's like, I came, I guess, kind of to this whole thing through like the libertarian kind of circle of like, starting out, like studying like Murray Rothbard and Ron Paul and Mises and kind of all of that gay crap. And then, when 2020 hit, it kind of broke me out of the paradigm of like thinking that the political systems and the geopolitical systems that we were told about were real, because it was very clear that like they're not. Like, we do not live in a world of, competing, competing interest in like geopolitics the way that like some people kind of, perceive it. It's like that's just not reality, right? Because 2020 couldn't have happened the way it did if that was reality. And it started to make me look at the world through a whole different lens, be like, hey, this is way deeper than that. Like, this is deeper. Like, it's not, I always say it's like, it's not just men that are like orchestrating this. It goes so much deeper. And, that was, for me, was just a massive breaking point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's all, you hear people say this a lot. It's all connected, but it really is. I mean, I could have sat down, 15 minutes before the show and just wrote out a list of all the things that I saw happening in 2020, because it's a long list. I'd have to sit down and think about it now, but it's everything from the geopolitical stuff to the health stuff to everything in between, to apparently Epstein associated secret societies and everything else. It's
right.
all that's connected in it, and it had its role. And I don't know what happened, man. I wonder if I know they're greedy, and I know they've got their Agenda 2029 plans, and you've got the or Agenda 2030, excuse me. 2029 is when Ray Kurzweil says the singularity will happen.
Right.
And he sort of speaks for that tech bro new neo-philosophical movement that's happening, where you have Peter Thiel and Elon Musk and Altman and all those guys. They're all talking about how it sounds like they're just flat out planning for something to happen, whether it's 2029 or 2030.
Right.
So I know they've got plans for that sort of thing. So is it like a situation where they got greedy? If Bill Gates is involved, was he just couldn't help himself? Like, we need to go ahead and roll this out and see how much control we can take, because that's what it seems like. If it was a giant op, it seems like it was meant to strip us of our rights and give them more control, to take the scales. They're already not balanced, but to tip the scales in their behalf. Was that what it was? Was it like we'll see how much power we can get our greedy hands on before 2029 and 2030. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I've thought that about Corona for a hot minute. Like, it seemed like a test to try to figure out how I always looked at it. Maybe this is the cynic in me, but like, how far gone is the populace? How far can we push this before we see, something those people would call undesirable happen? I look at it kind of like, I don't know, if you're playing chess or some kind of strategy game, like, you want to wait to show your hand until you're sure you're gonna win, right? You want to wait to make it obvious. It's like super obvious what you're doing until the game's in the bag. We're not ready to show our hand yet, but we're going to see how far we can take this. That's kind of the way I looked at that, at least while it was going on. And every time I reflect back on it, I kind of become more entrenched in that thought pattern. I don't know about you, John.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I've always viewed it as it was kind of a test to see like how society is going to respond, collectively to like a mass trauma event. Because it's like, that's the way they kind of manipulate society, is through like just seeding, small little bits of like trauma onto people, and then like kind of telling them subtly what their solution is. That I was thinking about this today. I was in probably like 6th grade when, the Alex Jones lawsuit shooting happened. And immediately after that, we started doing lockdown drills. I'd never done lockdown drills in like elementary school before that. We were doing that all the time. And we were, our classroom was like right next to a fire escape, and they were like, they would tell us, it's like, hey, just go and sit in the corner of the classroom. And I was always asking, I was like, why don't we just go out the fire escape and leave? If someone's here to like, let's just leave. And the logic was all, well, no, it's safer to just sit in the room and die. Like, that's the safer option. And I say all that to say is like, from when that happened, it seemed like there was like this kind of, and not just our school, but in like schools around the world, they like let kids like live that trauma over and over and over, like all around like the country. And like they do that with all these other events where you just kind of live these little trauma events over and over, and then they'll tell you the solution, right? The solution will be illogical if you actually think about it, but you'll follow it, you know, because it's like what the authority tells you to do. And I think like Corona was that en masse, right? Was to like put out this mass problem, this mass like traumatic thing onto society, give out the solution, and see if they respond en masse like they are expected to respond in like the microcosms, if that makes sense. And
Yeah,
you know,
like let's
Go
see
ahead.
if the programming works.
Right,
Yeah.
right. That's kind of
A
what I've kinda seen.
lifetime, a lifetime of programming. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like I think they were doing that in the Cold War too,
Yeah,
where
yeah.
they
Hide
were
under your
making the
desk.
kids. Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
man. It's all
Yeah.
there was no that whole thing was a ruse. There was no Cold War. It was
Yeah.
all
Yes.
drummed up. It was a bunch of nonsense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They
Oh.
do all that to kind of just test your conditioning, I think.
Well, and you called it a while back, John, during all the ice storms. You were like, look how easy it is to call this programming back up, because there were people online who were, you know, some guy would post like, hey, how do I get to X store? And there were people online screaming at him about, how dare you endanger everyone driving out on the roads by yourself with no one around, not near anything. How dare you be outside?
Yeah.
You terrible human being. Like, it was all these, I can only assume they were middle-aged women, but it was all these people, you know, it was just like they called that programming right back up.
Yeah.
It was so weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a lot of like mini ops all running in the background of this one big op.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with that, man. That was one of the things I saw in 2020. I started to realize how programmed I was by just being an American, just growing up in this society.
Right.
It's everywhere. I mean, from the movies you watch to the sitcoms you watched in the 90s, even everywhere, to the music you listen to. It's all, a lot of it's just manufactured culture.
Oh yeah.
Especially
so much of it.
especially once you get into like the Laurel Canyon stuff, as far back as like the 60s and 70s, that they were propping up these musicians and were, you know, behind the scenes working with them, like using Courtney Love to get drugs into the grunge scene, even like how deep you want to go with it. Like they were controlling everybody from Jim Morrison to Zappa.
God.
Crosby, Stills, and Nash.
Oh, that one kind of hurts.
That does hurt a
I
little
like
bit.
Crosby,
Yeah.
Stills.
Yeah, I know. And like, well, so in some of this is like, some of that is like, okay, how much control did they have over them? You know,
Right.
I think some of those guys legitimately sat down and wrote good songs. They had the talent. You know,
Sure.
Jim Morrison was talented. He had to have talent. But then you get into the guy from the Foo Fighters, Dave Grohl, and you find out that his dad wrote speeches for Bush or Reagan. I think it was Reagan. You guys ever heard that one?
I forgot about that. Yeah. It's been a long time, but yeah, I heard about that a while back. I meant to look into it and I never did.
Yeah. And I was having a conversation with somebody the other day, and they thought that the whole grunge scene, the whole grunge movement, was just a new Laurel Canyon.
Oh.
And that hurt. That's what hurt me. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, dang it.
I've been known
Chris
to enjoy
Cornell.
some grunge music. Yeah, that does hurt.
I was like, come on, man.
Oh,
I thought
yeah.
Chris Cornell was one of the good guys. I was holding out hope for even some of the guys in Pearl Jam, even some of these like sketchy liberals. I was just like, I still had hope that they were just genuine.
You can still enjoy the music though.
Yeah, exactly. You can.
Yeah.
I mean, even Smashing Pumpkins, Billy Corgan. I brought him up, and they were like, no, manufactured culture. And I was like, Billy Corgan? But what it does is, or what it is it comes, a lot of that goes back to this band called, I'll just censor it somewhat because we're live, but the Beehole Surfers. You know what I'm talking about?
No, I've never heard of it.
Okay. I guess I'll
Butthole
just say it.
Surfers?
Yeah, can you say that on here? Are we going to get in trouble?
It'd be fine,
Not that
I
I'm
guess.
aware of. Yeah,
guess- okay.
yeah, we'll bleep the edited version anyway. So yeah, we're good.
Okay. No, I don't know how they do with that word. So I've never,
I
don't
say
know
a
if
lot
they
worse on a lot of our live streams, so
Yeah.
you're fine. You're totally fine.
But yeah, so it goes back to this band called the Butthole Surfers, who they're still around to some extent, but they're just not very known. They had a song called Pepper that was really big. They were doing grunge music in the 80s.
Ooh.
They they like forefathered the whole thing.
Yeah.
And they had a guy in the band named Leary who claims that he's not related to Timothy Leary, but they think that he is, if you get into the conspiracy of it. So they think he's involved with this CIA LSD ring.
Okay. That tracks.
And that, because that was Courtney Love's thing. Her dad, her biological father, was somehow involved with the CIA. I think he may have been involved with military generals as well. And they were using her to, like I said before, insert drugs into the newly founded grunge scene. Right. She would show up. Supposedly she's the one who got Kurt addicted to heroin and a lot of other people. And the way she met Cobain was at a party she was at with Billy Corgan. So all the people are sort of involved with it. And these parties is how they were doing things in the first place. That's what they did with Zappa back in the 70s. They gave him a party house and said, you invite everybody out, you cultivate the scene. Here's the LSD, dish this out, get everybody on it and all this and that. And it seems like they did the same playbook for grunge, but it goes back to the Butthole Surfers, who has a guy named Leary in the band, who you go through and you listen to some of their songs, and you can see that the influence there. Like you can see the influence directly to bands like the Smashing Pumpkins. Like that's where they got part of their sound from, was this group.
Yeah.
So you know, it's like, how deep down the rabbit hole do you want to go? I mean, is everything a lie? You know, and I try not to be black-pilled with it, but but I find it interesting that they've had, speaking to what you guys were talking about a minute ago, just how they're manufacturing the culture again, and programming and all that. Like they've been doing it for so long. It's just such an expansive operation. It's hard to even put your finger on all the little nodes of control they have.
Yep.
Yeah, and they're increasing their avenues to be able to do that constantly. And it seems like with the mass populace, it's so much easier. And I've probably said this on the show too often lately, but I guess I'm about to say it again. Like with phones and algorithms and the way people are watching, you know, TikTok, Facebook Reels, all this stuff, and you add in like all the just generic media watching people are doing on like Netflix and Hulu and whatever streaming services people have, and you have these avenues to just slowly push people's consciousnesses one direction or another. Isaac Asimov talked about it a lot in his trilogy, the Foundation trilogy, where he talks about like how predictable people are en masse and how easy it is if you start early enough and you have enough essentially like avenues to affect people, how easy it is to push the mass consciousness one direction or another over time. And it starts now. Like it pretty much starts in like, I guess, straight out of the womb for a lot of people, maybe in preschool, in this like new like Carnegie Rockefeller education system we have. Somebody mentioned, I think in the chat, Robert Maxwell, like essentially writing all of the books kids have to learn from in school. Like that whole system appears to be controlled. And this is where I have a hard time. I'm curious to hear y'all's thoughts on how you maintain sanity. Have a hard time not just falling into becoming black-pilled, becoming this nihilistic that doesn't want to do anything or talk to anybody, because I mean you get away from that and into this world where it seems like anybody who experiences any level of success, anybody who seems to kind of like rise above the masses or do better than, is also controlled. So like, what are you working towards? You know? Like it seems like they're getting everybody from both ends, and essentially you're controlled from the time you make it into school, and even if you make it out of school and you're trying to, you know, do well, live a good life, you make it far enough, you may also be part of the problem. You know, is that the track?
Yeah, for sure. I wanna say real quick too, because something came to mind. Netflix. You mentioned Netflix. Speaking to the programming.
Yeah.
That guy who started Netflix is the nephew of Mr. Propaganda himself, Edward Bernays. You guys know about Edward Bernays?
Oh, I've heard the name. Yeah. I can't remember what he's associated with. Is he the guy who wrote that book on propaganda?
He wrote a book called Propaganda.
Okay,
he was very influential, especially during the Eisenhower years, in the early 50s, 53, 54 even. He got men to wear watches with an ad campaign. It was only women were wearing them. Men were wearing pocket watches somewhat. He got them to men to wear wristwatches. He got Americans to start eating bacon for breakfast and a bunch of other stuff. And it's a weird lineage because he's related to Freud.
Oh, okay.
So you got Freud. His cousin or nephew is Bernays cousin / nephew. I don't remember which one it is one of the guys who started Netflix. And the guys that started Netflix were super still are heavily involved with the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
And they have this rag to riches story that you often see propped up in the media, which like what they do with people like Jeff Bezos, where they're like, oh, this is rags to riches. These guys just work really hard to get where they're at. They started with nothing. They started with pennies and they made billions. Yeah. And it's just not true. It's not true at all. Like these guys were handed money from the jump. Like Elon Musk was, he was given a red carpet to do what he's doing. Same with Bezos, same with these guys in Netflix. I looked into it. The guy who started Netflix, he's backed out now. Okay. I have to look his name up here in a minute. He's backed out and let the other guy take the forefront. So he's not on the books as the owner anymore, but the guy who's backed out now grew up in the same neighborhood. He was neighbors with the Clintons.
Oh,
of course.
Okay.
And that's not out there. It's just something I dug into it once and I saw that. So there's your Netflix. There's your Netflix. And then the guy who's running it now is such a big donor to the Democratic Party that he struck up deals with Obama and has worked out. Obama has a Netflix deal now, ongoing Netflix deal with this guy. And they made, I forget the details, but Obama brought in somebody from Netflix into his administration too. So the point is they're thick as thieves, right? So
yeah, for sure.
And it's that rags to riches thing that always gets me. They try to act like these guys, because that's the thing with the Netflix guys. They're like, oh, they had to get up early and carpool and drive, 3 hours into work every morning and just hustle and grind and all. And it's just not the case, man. They grew up with money.
Yeah. I wonder how often they essentially just go back and rewrite those stories, because you hear that about a lot of those people. Bill Gates.
Oh yeah.
Zuckerberg. I mean, all those people. It's like, yeah, they started in their college dorm room working on an old computer, and now they're billionaires. It just happened. Just a normal thing. If you work hard enough if you give your life to corporate America, you too could be that one day. Sure.
Yeah. And
hey, why would I want to be? But yeah.
They put out they do a little photo shoot too. Have you seen? There's a picture of the Bezos origin story, right? Or he's in his office, and there's like a bag of Doritos in the corner, and Amazon is like painted up on the wall with like spray paint or something. It looks like he's in like a slum and starting his company out of some strip mall. Not even like his college dorm room or whatever. They come up with scripts.
Yeah.
They come up with scripts for these people, and they do the same. They did the same for George W. Bush. They scripted out the guy's whole political career. Scripted it all out. Made him, for whatever reason, they wanted him to look like this good old boy Texan and have him wear cowboy boots in the Oval Office. And he's not even from Texas. He's from Connecticut.
Right.
He's not even a Southerner.
Yeah.
Where
did he get that accent from? That's what I've always been curious about. He's got quite the accent.
They probably just had him hang out with I don't know, Matthew McConaughey for a couple of weeks and just
it's just really contagious.
Yeah. Peter Thiel and JD Vance. And JD Vance, it appears that his career has been somewhat scripted out for him as well.
It certainly feels like it with him, yeah.
Yeah. Thiel donated something astronomical, like 15 million to his political campaign. I think more by now, but at one drop, One drop was 15 million that he gave him, and it broke records.
That's ridiculous.
Peter Thiel got him into the White House. Make no mistake about it.
And Thiel's such a creepy figure by himself. I'm curious. I mean, I'm sure you've dug up some wild stuff on him, but like, he's already so creepy. Running Palantir, all the shit going on with like, he just happens to be super interested in the Antichrist. That happens to be a passing interest of one of the like biggest billionaires and military contractors in the world. Just casually interested in the Antichrist. He just gives the occasional weekend lecture on the Antichrist in the Vatican of all places.
All right, so look, check this out. His hometown, because somebody was asking me about this on another show, so I just went ahead and looked it up.
Yeah.
Peter Thiel is from, so he lived in South Africa for a while, not unlike Elon Musk, our buddy Elon.
Right. Friend of the show.
Friend of the community. But what's different about Thiel's hometown is that it is you could go so far as to say a enclave.
Oh,
where
all right.
After World War II, people who were, in a sense, running from the Reich, a lot of the Nazis scattered across the globe. A lot of them, or many of them, ended up down in South Africa in these friendly enclaves. And this was one of them, where Peter Thiel grew up. And I looked into it, and it's called, I don't know if I can pronounce it, but Swakopmund. It's SWAKOPMUND.
I have no idea. Swakopmund. Like I got nothing. I don't know how. Yeah, I would not know how to pronounce that.
But they were flying flags down there for certain holidays and stuff. It's a mess. And he comes out of that environment. And I was looking into something else. Let's see if I can find the article here. There's these guys that were looking into this, and they found that they think that there was some genocide happening there in the town during the apartheid days.
Oh, dang. I mean, that was par for the course back then, but
right. But they think that maybe some of these Nazis in his hometown were perpetrating some of that. They had a prison camp here. A lot of this is in German. It's hard to read through, but there's a guy on here who went through and looked at, it's called German Colonial Genocide in Namibia. That's the name of the article. And he goes in and looks at Peter Thiel's hometown, and they do this investigation on it. The investigation is the latest installment of our project on the genocide perpetrated against Nama and Overhero people by Imperial Germany in what is today Namibia. Conducted in partnership with Overhero and Nama activists and traditional leaderships, this investigation focuses on the harbor town of Swakopmund, if that's how you say it. From 1904 until 1908, Swakopmund housed a concentration camp run by the German colonial army. Together with descendants of survivors and activists, we reconstructed the town as it existed during the genocide, revealing the long-forgotten location of the camp, alongside many sites of forced labor throughout the town's fabric. With forensic archaeologists, we investigated the unmarked graves of the camp's victims at the edges of town, revealing how they have been disturbed and destroyed by urban development. Swakopmund is located where, maybe it's not Namibia, maybe it's Namibia.
Oh, Namibia, yeah.
Okay, it's Namibia.
Yeah.
Namibia,
I think is how it's pronounced. Yeah.
Okay, Namibia. So it's located where Namibia's Swakop River flows into the Atlantic. So
isn't that the town where like they allegedly like elected a guy named? Is that the one?
I don't know,
man. I mean, you could see that I wouldn't put much past them with that sort of thing here. The town was established in 1892 as a primary seaport for a growing colony. 2 years later, the Hamburg-based shipping company Warman began trading in the region. Anyway, so it's very German, and
Yeah.
he's got a very sketchy past. And this is where Peter Thiel hails from. This little town.
Of course.
What are the chances?
Yeah.
What are the chances?
Just
And
wild coincidences.
And I did kind of look into him more, and I'm trying to find some of my notes on that because I'm trying to get everything right. I have not been looking into Peter Thiel lately. So, but he went to a college here in America, and I'm trying to remember which college it was. But anyway, there was at the time he was there, there were a lot of people protesting apartheid.
Okay.
And he was pro-apartheid while he was openly pro-apartheid.
Wow.
In his American university. And it's just like, what? How do you get your head in that space? What are the mental gymnastics involved with being pro-apartheid? Is there a case that anybody can think of? You guys tell me.
we can work on it, do some thought exercises, and get back to you.
Get back to me. Anyway,
see if we can find a case.
But you see where I'm going with all this, man. This is the guy who's backing JD Vance's political career. And I'm not trying to get political. Part of my 2020 awakening, if I can call it that, is definitely ditching the two-party system. Like, I just don't care.
Yeah, exactly.
I just don't care anymore. I don't care. You can talk crap about both the parties around me, and I'm happy with it.
Yeah. Right there with you. That's one that fell for me in 2022 because I was obviously growing up in like the South, conservative America, just mullets and guns and trucks and hell yeah, America.
Woo.
But definitely left that camp almost immediately in 2020. I was like, oh, this is all nonsense. This is all BS. Why is anybody paying attention to politics anymore? And on that note, guys, we can't not talk about this tonight. We just went to space again. We just flew a giant dick to space again. I'm curious as to your thoughts on did you pay any attention to the Artemis stuff?
No, I haven't really been paying attention to it. I don't.
That's fair.
I don't necessarily believe it. I don't know what's happening, but I don't think it's what they're telling us. That's where I'm at with it currently. I'd love to hear your thoughts, though. I know this. I know when it comes to these space rocket launches, they're heavily steeped in occult ritual.
Right.
You can go and look up. There's a guy named Chris Knowles who has a really great blog. He does great blogs in general, but he has one on that where he talks about and goes through and shows how there's a lot of occult rituals involved with the launching of the rockets. And speaking of Obama, like some of this even involved presidents where they'll have the presidents come out to the launch site and tell them where to stand. And it's correlated with astronomy and with other symbology in general. And Knowles breaks that down. And I think you can see it whenever you get into Jeff Bezos as well.
Yeah.
Jeff Bezos, the Blue Origin launch. Again, the guy was not this rags to riches poor guy. Poor Bezos started his company in his college dorm room with Amazon spray painted on the wall and dirty boxers in the floor. Like, there's more behind all these guys. They've been handed careers and they've had much of that progression for them scripted out. So once you get up to this guy is, running Amazon and sending rockets allegedly into the sky, I'll just say,
allegedly,
there's all this crazy occult stuff involved with that. And with the Blue Origin, it's Ostara. They did the launch right around Easter. Ostara is also known as Eastar. She's the Norse goddess of spring. Very associated with Ishtar as well. And you've got the names there very similar. Ostara, Easter, Ishtar. Yeah. And they have Katy Perry come out of the pod and hold up a flower. You guys remember she held the flower up to That's Ostara symbolism going back millennium.
Good heavens.
So I'll just to get back to what you're saying there about this current launch, I still need to go in and analyze, but I'm sure there's occult connections there. I mean, let's just look at the Space Force. Look at the Space Force logos.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh gosh, we looked at that a couple of weeks ago. I can't remember what it is now.
It's a Sphinx head looking up at a star, and I think it's the 8-pointed star of Ishtar, if I remember correctly.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, all these logos are so weird. Oh, is that it, John?
Yeah, I can't remember which one it was.
Okay, this is the main logo. There's another logo. I should have been more specific. It's a special patch.
Oh yeah, I remember what.
There it is.
Is that? Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
There it is. Yep, that's it.
That's so weird.
Yeah, it's got eight points to the star, so that's a. There you go, 8-pointed star of Ishtar.
Oh my gosh! Yeah, I'd forgotten about that. There's so strange.
Probably some Egyptian cosmology involved with this as well. I imagine that's why they're using the Sphinx.
Dang. It is odd. I mean, even from a surface level, like the way we're naming them all after deities of some kind, like that's just a real basic, like Apollo, Artemis. What are we doing? These people are allegedly scientific atheists. They believe in Richard Dawkins and Charles Darwin. Like those are the people they venerate. And so it's weird that our science folks from a main are naming these after Artemis and Apollo and all these things. Obviously very occult. I did watch some of the footage. I don't know if you guys did it all. It was the camera cuts out, like they're sending pictures from their phones back from space, but we don't have cameras that'll work in space. It's so weird.
No,
it's so weird.
Oh yeah, JT put out a really good reel recently. JT follows JC. He put out a really good reel addressing this whole recent launch, and he goes through and shows a lot of old footage and shows you how goofy it is. Like this stuff did not age well. And you've got he even includes the phone call to the moon that Nixon made.
No,
air quotes, placed a call to the moon. It's so he's on a landline. Like
They took a cord with him. They took a cord all the way to space.
Yeah. Boss, I'm calling you from the Oval Office. And it's just a big publicity stunt, the whole thing is. And you get those guys hopping around, and in the footage, you can see this hokey, goofy, obvious fake horizon in the background. It's just the fakest horizon you can picture. It's like whatever their version of Photoshop was back in the day.
All those old Hollywood movies with the painted background. That's what it reminds me of. Honestly. Yeah.
Oh, and in that the main Space Force logo, I noticed something that I haven't noticed before.
Can we get that back?
It's got 3 points on it, I think. It's very triangular. And yeah, so that's 1, 2, 3. 3 points. They've got the 8-pointed star in the background. You see that?
Mm-hmm. Like a weird sperm circling the Earth. That one's kind of weird.
Yeah. So there's once you get into old rites of the pagans and just old occult themes in general, you have to include the goddess stuff because it's been largely forgotten about today, but ancient people really, really worship the goddess big time. That was, I've been calling it goddess world order. That's what it was. It was worldwide. It's all throughout the Bible. I could take you to the book of Jeremiah and show you how time and time again, they're just talking about how God is trying to get people to get off the goddess worship for the most part. All throughout the Bible, but it's definitely all throughout Jeremiah. And they call her the Queen of Heaven, and I think it's Jeremiah 40 or 44. Yep. And But anyway, so you got to understand all that. But there's 3 numbers of the goddess going back to the Space Force logo. You got the 8-pointed star of Ishtar, which I saw in the logo. You've got the 5-pointed star of Venus, and that's not in this, but 3 is also a goddess number. So it's 8, 5, and 3. And this is a 3-pointed configuration. If you ask me, it's got 3 points, and that looks like it's a modified version of the Triquerta, which is an ancient goddess symbol. Sometimes it's shown as a infinity symbol or similar to that, but either way, it's got 3 points.
That's kind of interesting. I don't know if you've seen the path that they're allegedly flying to the moon is an infinity like symbol.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, let's look at that, man. Yeah.
Give me a sec, I'll find it.
Yeah, that might be Triquerta symbolism. I think is how you say that. Yeah.
That's the first time I've heard about that. That's new to me. Triquerta. I'm gonna have to look into that.
It's in National Treasure. It's in the movie. They pan over it. It's on one of the artifacts or something. I don't remember exactly what scene it is, but it's most people see it and they say, "Oh, that's the infinity symbol."
Right.
But it's also a goddess symbol as well called the Triquerta.
Well, so many of these symbols we have now have such like deep origins that a lot of us just aren't aware of. Things like the infinity symbol, or that, like, I don't know, that little like triangle badge thing. A lot of the 8-pointed stars we're seeing out there, like so much of it has this, I don't know, weird occult past. I don't know that makes all of it inherent. All of the stuff we use now inherent. Holy that's an infinity sign.
Yeah. Because they're allegedly orbiting and then doing like an infinity elliptical back there and back.
That's like a figure 8, you know.
Yeah. What in the world?
And you're right. I have seen people use that as an infinity symbol as well. There's another one though that it has 3 loops in it. That's the one I'm talking about.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about too.
But yeah, that's an infinity symbol as well.
Dang.
I mean, all that, it's all baked in. It's all baked into the founding of the country.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so what do you think of all of this divine feminine talk that's coming out lately? That's been a big topic of discussion as of late. Where do you think all that's headed? Is it and how closely do you think it's related to, like, I don't know. I always pair that with a lot of the AI movement forward for some reason. I don't know why, but I always do.
Yeah, it's a thing. I think it's a renewal of that goddess world order. I think if things are cyclical and it's just coming back around again.
Yeah.
Same as Astaru, same as Artemis. I'd have to look. Nef Hunter, I'd have to look, man. I think Artemis is something else from mythology. I'm not sure, but I'll have to look it up in a minute. Yeah, I mean, there's something to this divine feminine stuff. I was trying to bang on that drum early on and tell people that this is happening. I think I was talking about it before I knew that Bledsoe was talking about it.
Right.
I found out about Bledsoe and the lady after I had started looking into it. And because what happened was the 3 main things that I found myself looking into when I started the show was Templarism, or just Templars in general, ancient America, and goddess stuff. And what I've come to find is all that stuff is connected, inexorably linked in a crazy way. So I started looking into Ishtar stuff, and I started seeing the ties with Ishtar in the modern UFO movement. I was like, oh, this is weird. This is really weird.
Yeah.
So by the time I saw Chris Bledsoe, who is a big part of the modern UFO movement, talking about the lady, I was already a couple steps ahead of him in that regard. I was already seeing the signs, and it didn't really take me off off guard. Like I feel like it's a deception, honestly.
Yeah.
They seem to think that this is some sort of being of light that has humanity's best interest in mind. And I'm not so sure about that. But yeah, man, it goes back to the goddess trope kicked off the whole UFO thing. Like you go back to 1947 and 46 even. Go back to Jack Parsons in the Mojave Desert,
Mm-hmm.
where he's doing a ritual with L. Ron Hubbard, the Babylon working. And they both documented that, and they both wrote down what they saw in their visions, and they had all these, voices from beyond the veil coming to them and telling them things, and they're writing it down, and it's all goddess Babylon stuff.
Right.
Which, if you look at the goddess Babylon, you go back, there's a book called The Red Goddess by Peter Gray. This guy took like 8 years of his life to study the goddess Babylon, and one of his conclusions is that it's Ishtar Inanna. It's just another name. So that's who Parsons was talking to. And that ritual ends in 1947. It butts right up to the Roswell incident, right up to the Kenneth Arnold incident. There's actually a third UFO incident that wasn't talked about much. That's in 47 as well. I think it's the Maury Island incident, if I'm not mistaken. So you got 3 big UFO things happening right after the Babylon working.
Right.
And then on top of that, in the same desert, in 1947, enters George Van Tassel. Worked for Lockheed, I believe it was.
Okay.
Has a very cushy job at Lockheed. Up and decides to leave his job and move out to the Mojave Desert on a whim. Moves his whole family out there.
Yeah.
As you do, normal folks do. Moves to the Mojave Desert. Lives for a while they lived underneath a giant rock. And
oh my gosh.
Just crazy stuff. And he goes on to start the what becomes the UFO spiritual movement. He starts the Ashtar Command because he said an entity named Ashtar was talking to him. And I don't see any of that as a coincidence. Also, in a desert in California, George Adamski, a couple years later, another UFO contactee movement member, has an interaction with somebody from Venus, the Venusians. That's the same, going back millennia. Venus is associated with the goddess Babylon, with Ishtar, with Inanna. So the whole start of the UFO movement itself is tied in with the divine feminine, if you ask me. It's been there from the start. Kicked it off, and you get into the Collins elite, or if that's even a real thing. I don't know if that's what they call themselves, but there is some sort of a insulated government unit that looks into this stuff, and you do get glimpses of that occasionally, and they say that, and there's a guy who represents them who's going out on podcasts now named Tim Taylor, who's saying that these are entities, ancient entities, some of whom were talked about in the Bible. And I link that back to Ishtar Inanna as well, because in the Bible she's called Ashtoreth, or Astarte, or the Queen of Heaven. It's all I think it's just the same entity who was there from the start. And in that group, that Collins Elite Light group, whatever they're calling themselves now, talks about how in their mind they believe Jack Parsons opened some sort of a portal and let this thing in.
Yeah.
So it's people in our own government who believe this, but the problem is they will not come out and tell the public this stuff. There's a whole other PR firm dedicated to what we're allowed to know.
Right.
But behind the scenes, there's people in our government, I believe wholeheartedly, who know that this is like ancient entities involved with this whole thing. Not saying they're demons. Like, I'm not going down the, oh, the aliens are demons. I'm not saying that. I think it's more complicated than that, but I think there are these old entities that were talked about in the Bible. That's my opinion.
Yeah. I'm always curious as to people's thoughts on the divine feminine, just because I ran across it before its like big repopularization. What was that? 2-3 years ago now, maybe max. For me, it was either in 2020 or just prior to 2020. I was listening. I don't know if you guys know who Alex Zek is. He kind of blew up during the pandemic and all that nonsense. But even before that, he had a podcast where he started interviewing people on things like the divine feminine and kind of looking at it as like I don't
Who's
know.
this, bro? Tell me his
Alex,
name again.
Alex Zek. He runs a podcast called The Way Forward, and he interviews a lot of health initiative people. He also interviews a lot of spiritual folks, I guess, for lack of a better term. Super interesting guy, into some wild stuff. But I ran across it in discussions he was having with people about he almost the way they almost talked about it was couching it in terms of and I don't want this to come across as like borderline blasphemous, but like couching it in terms of like intuition and almost like a Holy Spirit-esque indwelling in like women and men that people like either had to engage with or like weren't engaging with on a meaningful level. And that kind of started me wondering about like a at that time like a potential, I don't know, spiritual, I don't know, duality of sorts that yeah. And so I'm always curious as to people's thoughts on that.
That's the triquetra symbol. That's what that's representing. It's a counterfeit Holy Trinity. It's a goddess trinity.
Okay, yeah, heard of that.
So in Christianity, of course, we have God, Father, God, Jesus, Holy Spirit. There's a pagan, if you will, counterfeit goddess version of that. And that's the goddess trinity is represents that. And what they were doing was Templars especially were having what was called the Feast of the Triple Goddess. And they were involved with this. But anyway, what it is they're saying that, I think a lot of them say that the Holy Spirit part of that is Sophia. And this gets into a lot of deep Gnostic waters, which I'm definitely not a Gnostic. And I think that it's, like I said before, I think it's all just counterfeit.
Right. Okay. I mean, that tracks. That the more I've looked into it, the more that sort of perspective makes sense. But at the time, I didn't know anything about Gnosticism. I was brand new, so I was kind of suckered right into it. I was like, oh, maybe I do need to engage with my more feminine side. Maybe that's just what this is. Maybe I need to go take a hot bath, put on a face mask, like have myself a little night, like pour myself a glass of wine, girl. It's nothing. Yes. And so, yeah, after looking into it, it seemed a little more sinister.
Yeah, I hear you, man. And like things are always just a little bit more complicated, and there's a gray area here, and some people might not like this, but I think that there is a female side to God. I think that God has a masculine and female essence, and because we were made in His image,
right?
If we were made in His image, so were women. It makes total sense to me.
Yeah.
I just don't think that we are supposed to be worshiping the female side of God. But I think there might be a duality there. Girl boss. Yeah. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, that completely makes sense. Yeah.
It's just my opinion. This isn't like, oh, this is how it is. I'm not trying to tell everybody how they're supposed to feel or believe, but that's kind of how I see it. And I think that Proverbs 8 chapter, Proverbs 9, where Solomon is talking about this female essence, he calls wisdom. The Gnostics take that and say, oh, see, that's Sophia. And I say, not so fast. That's the name you guys gave to it. You look into Sophia, and she's relatively new to the scene with ancient religions. She popped up after all the Hebrew tradition was well solidified and everything else. It seems like somebody along the way came along and gave attributed an aspect of God to a more Gnostic leaning and called it Sophia. But regardless, in Proverbs 8 and Proverbs 9, he is talking about something that is, for all intents and purposes, a female essence who was with God when he created the earth and was there bearing witness to it, there as a master worker. I think I was a master worker standing beside him. I'm paraphrasing, but it's something like that. And it's a female essence. So what is that? I'm not sure, but I'm not going to call it Sophia either.
That tracks.
I suspect that it's a female essence of God that was drawn upon when he created Eve, and he put that into Eve, thus making her a woman. That's what I suspect. But that's too Gnostic for some people.
Yeah.
That's too Gnostic for some people. But I'm not a Gnostic, but I'm just to be fair here, right? There's something to some of this, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that makes relatively rational sense. Granted, it's the first time I've ever heard that, but it makes relatively rational sense insofar as, I don't know, I tend to look at things like this from like as simple a perspective as I can. Like, what can we know just based on like the intuition and knowledge we have? And we all seem to attribute like these inborn characteristics of men and women, even within the same person, to being masculine or feminine characteristics. Like if I go out and I protect somebody, or I attack somebody, or I lift something heavy, those are masculine characteristics, right? If I go out and care for a child, if I go out and express an excessive amount of empathy, like those are typically allied with like the feminine side of things, right? And so it seems like those traits, and I'm talking out of my butthole, but those traits seem to be almost inherently associated with some spiritual level. I don't want to call it duality because that does kind of get into some weird Gnostic space, but like this spiritual like magnet, so to speak, like they're positive and negative male and female poles, kind of. I don't know, but like we inherently assign those traits to a masculine and a feminine, and I don't know if is that social conditioning or is that just our intuition, call it the Holy Spirit, call it what you want, doing exactly what it's supposed to do, saying this is one thing, this is another. You know, John, you're looking, you're squinting.
No, I'm just trying to process what you
Okay.
what you said. Sorry.
Okay, here's the verse real quick, just so people get a sense for what I'm talking about. It's Proverbs 8, starting with 22, verse 22. Now, granted, this whole chapter he's talking about wisdom, and he's saying it's a her. He's referring to her as a she. But he says, God, this is titled Wisdom's Part in Creation. The Lord created me at the beginning of his work, the first of his acts long ago. Ages ago, I was set up at the first, before the beginning of the earth. When there were no depths, I was brought forth. When there were no springs abounding with water, before the mountains had been shaped, before the hills, I was brought forth. When he had not yet made earth and fields, or the world's first bits of soil, I was there. When he established the heavens, I was there. When he drew a circle upon the face of the deep, when he made firm the skies above, when he established the fountains of the deep, when he assigned to the sea its limit so that the waters might not transgress his command, when he marked out the foundations of the earth, then I was beside him like a master worker. I was his daily delight, rejoicing before him, always rejoicing in his inhabited world and delighting in the human race. That sounds to me like something that has life, is a being, has a job, and also it worships God.
Yeah.
So whatever she is, she worships God. So God's above her. So I don't think that she's to be worshipped alongside of God, if that makes sense. But just, I mean, it's a tricky chapter. It's a tricky chapter. This is too deep for some people. It's too deep for some people. It's too deep for most pastors. All the pastors, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
If you're a pastor out there and you got something on this, hit me up because I'm waiting to hear from you guys.
Yeah, I haven't heard anybody with a Bible degree talking about that ever.
And so what is that, right? It's not, I don't think it's just wisdom as a concept. It has more life than that. And the Hebrew for that is chokmah. Chokmah. And it's a part of if you get into the Kabbalah, and I'm not going to go too far down that road, but it's a part of the tree of life in the Jewish tradition, chokmah. It's like this. In essence is the best way to describe it. So you get really, really theological really quick with some of this. But yeah. But to what you're saying, it just seems like water was assigned to be water and wet, and trees were designed to be hard and woody. It's like, and I'm not trying to make a sexual joke here. But, this seems like there's women are women are women and men are men in some regards.
You even unintentional as it sounded, like those are naturally masculine and feminine things. They just are. Like
I didn't even mean to do that.
Like it's just true. And so to me, that points like things like that are so inherently true. That's an example in our psyche. Yeah, like that's a perfect example.
That's it. Yeah,
that's a perfect example of how true that is. That makes so much sense. So on that front, obviously, like there are a lot of deities, and this is getting into some stuff you wanted to talk about, John. So feel free to tell me to shut up and take over. But obviously, like there are a lot of deities that people have worshipped over time that appear to have been created by God, right? A lot of like lesser deities that have names like Azazel. You want to talk about the Seed War, John? I'm trying to get to that. What do you want to talk about?
I'm not really sure how you're introducing it.
It's like Azazel and Semyaza and the Watchers.
Yeah.
Go ahead, John.
I mean,
I'm going to give up here.
Go ahead, John.
I just I'd watched an interview that you did with Doc Brown a couple of months ago. We're talking about this concept, and it's something that I've been kind of evaluating what actually happened in the garden. Right, because Doc said something in that interview, which I thought, is one of the more logical statements I've ever heard. It's like, if you want to understand the end of the story, you need to understand the beginning. And I definitely have started to kind of read through all the works of Michael Heiser and just read through The Unseen Realm. And I kind of realized it's like, I definitely don't understand the beginning as much as I thought I did. The story's a lot more complicated. Obviously when you get into, Genesis 6 and what happened there, but it seems like what happened in the garden was a lot more than the traditional kind of Bible Belt. Well, Eve just ate a fruit from a tree that she wasn't supposed to, and that, doomed humanity. Right. And, it's very clear that the serpent in the garden, the Nahash, is not a snake. It's an entity. Right. So whatever their interaction was a lot like more complex than the way that it was portrayed to me growing up. And I'm just kind of curious, like, what's your thoughts on what happened in the garden? What was the fall like that started everything,
I go back and forth on what it actually was. So I'll just have to be honest and tell you what I really think. That first of all, that episode was like one of my most controversial episodes ever. And my intention was to have Doc on and let him talk. I think that's the one you're talking about, right? Yeah. Was it just me and him?
Yeah.
Yeah. I let him. I don't know. I didn't say a lot in that episode, if I remember correctly. I think I just let him.
Yeah, I mean, he have it. Yeah.
And I heard him out. And he brings up a lot of great points. Something is going on there. I don't think it was a fruit.
Right.
And I go back and forth on if it was a sexual act or not. But I think
same here.
I think it had a sexual outcome. Like for instance, in South America, in some of the very, very old traditions there, I believe it's an Aztec tradition, they have a tradition of a woman who swallowed a little emerald, and conceived from that, some sort of a deity from that. Not a great example of what I'm trying to say here, but
No.
I think it's possible that Eve had a child in a way that maybe we don't understand today.
Mhm.
Maybe it wasn't like old-fashioned sex.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know. It's a tough one, man. It's a tough one. That one's tough, man, because I don't know where I stand on it yet. I believe in the Nephilim. I definitely believe that there is a seed war that's talked about in Genesis 3:15, where God says, I am going to put enmity between your seed and the seed of the serpent, between Eve's seed, which would be us humans, and the seed of the serpent. What's the seed of the serpent?
Right.
Well, somehow he has managed to what is the word I'm looking for? Procreate
works.
with human women, and I think that definitely happened in Genesis 6 with the Watchers, with people like Semyaza and Azazel, who, according to the Book of Enoch, are locked up because of that.
Right.
Now, did it start with Cain though? In the garden, did it start with Cain?
Yeah,
that's the question.
You know, what got me thinking about this is when I was reading through the Unseen Realm, Heiser started talking about Ezekiel chapter 28 and Isaiah 14, where you have these essentially kind of parables from both of them where they're talking to earthly rulers, right? In Ezekiel 28, it's very interesting. He's talking to the Prince of Tyre, but then the conversation shifts. Now he's talking to someone else, and it's like that someone else seems to be talking to the serpent in the garden. And in both of them, you can kind of get a sense for what the punishment was for his transgressions. And for me, it seems kind of similar to what the punishment was in Enoch, right? Because it looks to kind of be that he was, bound to Sheol, right? And that he was, put below the earth, right? And bound to kind of be the ruler over Sheol, the ruler over the dead. I was just like, that's very, very similar a little bit to what we see in Enoch, to where the transgressors, they were bound below the earth. They were locked away below the earth. And it also, when I was reading through Enoch, it kind of seemed like the Watchers knew what was going to happen to them. Like they knew the punishment for what they were going to do. That's why they like bound together an oath to maybe try to avoid it. Yeah, to try to like subvert it. But it's almost as if they've witnessed that transgression before. Was the connections I was kind of making in my mind, and so it kind of got me thinking. It was like maybe there's something to that.
We've bound each other together by mutual imprecations. It's a weird word. I remember looking at that and thinking, yeah, they said we all have to be in on this, so that something to do with the punishment. Like it's almost like that they were expecting a punishment from it. And that's why they bound each other under this oath to all. And it's interesting, that oath is archaeologically, there's what's called what do they call those? There's tablets that were found up there on Mount Hermon that talk about this oath and this thing happening there. It's carved into stone in an ancient language and everything, and half Greek, half something else. Pretty crazy. Yeah, man. Deuteronomy 32 is another one. There's a lot I could probably say to this. I'm just trying to figure out where you want me to take it. Because there's a shift in Ezekiel 28. There's a shift in Isaiah 14. And there's another one I found I'm trying to remember where it's at, but it's Hezekiah, and I don't remember, but it's that same situation where God is addressing a king,
Yep.
and then there's a shift in the conversation, and he starts addressing something that you can tell is not human.
Yeah.
Like in Ezekiel 28, he starts saying, "You were in the garden, you were adorned with all these precious stones," and it's like so clear that he's talking about a principality,
Yeah.
an entity. Yeah, that's wild. Deuteronomy 32 came to mind. Let's see. I looked that up. This is Moses. He says, "Remember the days of old, consider the years long past as your father, and he will inform you. Your elders, they will tell you. When the Most High apportioned the nations, when he divided humankind, he fixed the boundaries of the peoples according to the number of the gods, little g gods. The Lord's own portion was his people. Jacob was his allotted share."
Oh, that's so weird.
Little g gods. And this is, it's reworded, it's worded differently. Let's just say in the
Masoretic
KJV.
Masoretic is sons of Israel, but most other versions take from the Septuagint or the Qumran, which I think the Qumran is sons of God and the Septuagint sons of angels, which read like a lot more supernatural, a lot more messianic in a lot of different passages.
Yeah. You have to ask yourself too, like what happened with Cain in the land of Nod too.
I've always wondered about that. Yeah, what was he doing there?
He goes off and he kills his brother, and some weird stuff transpires. He gets this mark, some sort of a mark of protection God gives him, because Cain didn't want to leave the garden. He said he was afraid that he was going to be killed once he got out of whatever the Garden of Eden was if it was a realm of some sort, detached from, I don't know.
Right.
But outside of the boundaries of the Garden of Eden, he was afraid for his life. Well, who is out there? Who was he afraid of? Who did he go procreate with?
Yeah.
What was this land of Nod? What was this city or this civilization that he joined up with? And that's a tough one to answer too. And is that where he started a Serpent Seed line? Did he have to procreate with something that was like one of these little g gods from Deuteronomy 32? How did he? Because in a lot of texts, it does not talk about him having sisters. I found one. I think it was the book of Jasher. I have to go back and check. I think the book of Jasher talks about Adam and Eve having some girls. But I think it was later. Like they had the girls later. If we were to, take the book of Jasher at its word.
Yeah.
So I don't know that he started his line with a sister, right?
Yeah.
I think he went and met up with something or some group, and this gets crazy, man.
And I didn't even think about that. I was kind of unpacking, was day 6 different than Genesis 3? Right? Is that where it splits? But no, I didn't even. I think that makes a lot more sense.
Well, that's what I lean towards. Going back to what you brought up with the episode with Doc. Before that show, I was more leaning towards, if Cain started the Serpent Seed, it was something that happened when he left the garden and went to Nod.
Right.
But then Doc has a different theory, which he laid out, which is the fruit. The fruit wasn't a fruit; it was a sexual act. That's what he holds to. So, and I'm still trying to figure it all out, but I do lean more towards this was something that happened with Nod.
Yeah.
And because you get out of Cain, you get the line of Lamech and
Yeah.
Enoch. And I always
Yeah.
forget to tell people this, so I'm not going to forget. You guys probably know this, but there's 2 Enochs.
Yeah.
The book of Enoch was written by who we call good Enoch.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a quote bad Enoch that was he was one of Lamech's sons.
Right.
Or he was the grandfather. Let me see if I can remember this. It was Cain has kids. One of them's Enoch. And I think then Lamech is a part of that line. And then that's where you get Tubal Cain, Jubal Cain, and Nama. And now you're up to the flood
Right.
times. And they knew, it's like you said, they knew that something was going to happen because they put all this, according to legend, they wrote down a bunch of stuff and stored it on tablets, information.
Oh.
And this was where the Masons get their legend of the 7 sacred sciences. They say this goes all the way back to Lamech's kids. The line of information, occult information that was housed and curated by the line of Cain that would turn into our 7 sacred sciences. But how did it survive the flood? They wrote it on tablets, and they put those tablets, according to legend, beneath the Great Pyramids. And in a lot of legends suggest that the pyramids, that structure, for whatever reason, is some sort of, it's meant to house information and secure information in a catastrophe. I don't know if it's something to do with the shape or if that's just symbolic or what, but I think what they're going to uncover in Egypt right now is quite a lot like what Edgar Casey talked about when he said there's a hall of records down there. It might not be metaphysical. There might be an actual hall of records down there, like an ancient library.
Yeah.
I think there is. I absolutely think that there is 100%. You guys remember in Lord of the Rings where they go into the mountain where the dwarves had carved out these halls of the dwarves, and there's just these huge chambers, ornate columns, massive chambers. That's beneath the pyramids, guys, if you ask me. And there's tablets down there, and who knows what other forms of storing information. That's what I think is down there. And it all goes back to this pre-flood civilization. And probably the line of Cain.
Good heavens. That's wild.
And I got a book over here. Let me see if I have it. Yeah, dude, this book. Don't even ask me how I came across this, but this guy, I'm probably the only guy in Tennessee who has this. I might be the only person in the U.S. who has one of these right now. This guy was a John Kinnaman, archaeologist. He was working on the Great Pyramid. He was over there, and they discovered some sort of an entrance in the south wall. And they go in there, and they find records, tablets. And he said that they thought it was Atlantean. It was hearkening back to this Atlantean civilization. I think it was Cain. I think they're one and the same. I think that Atlantis was the descendants of Cain, in my opinion. But anyway, John Kinnaman breaks into the south wall, finds this records. The governments come in. The British government comes in. The Egyptian government come in. They have a powwow, and they say, we're sealing this up immediately. We're not going to say a word about this. They locked it down. But whatever it was that he found changed him overnight, because John Kinnaman went from being a secular archaeologist to a biblical archaeologist the next day. And then he started writing these books about Bible archaeology. It got him into the subject. And that's just that's a drop in the bucket, if you ask me, of what the Egyptian government is hiding over there.
Yeah.
I mean, they have to have a PR guy. The conspiracy over there is so vast. They have a this PR dude smokes cigarettes or cigars on Rogan and acts like a mobster and gets photo shoots with National Geographic, and they gave the whole thing to one guy and said, tell the narrative we want you to tell, and suppress everything else. Of course, I'm talking about Zahi Hawass. So hopefully in our lifetime, fellas, we'll see some of this stuff being broke open, because this guy did it in the 1920s. But yeah, if you ask me, it's a Hall of Records down there, like Edgar Casey said, except it's less metaphysical and probably more physical, more based in this realm.
Yeah.
This reality.
Maybe even both, because the pyramid design, the ziggurat design, is kind of just resemblance of a mountain, and that's where ancient people thought gods dwell. So it's like they're seeming to me are temples to, like, temples for any type of little g god is what they're designed as. So that's crazy.
Oh man, and I mean, there's so many legends like this too. And I was reading in the book of the giants, and the giants were getting upset over these dreams they were having. The giants were having apocalyptic dreams, and they were, if I remember correctly, they were going to Enoch, being like, "Hey, can you what did they call it in the Bible whenever they got their dreams, decoded for them? Can you interpret? Yeah. They're like, can you interpret our dreams?" And basically what was happening was the giants were having these prophetic dreams that judgment was coming on them soon. And it was to do with the flood, to do with the deluge. Yeah. So I think a lot of them did know, and they undertook this massive campaign to write down all their occult knowledge and hide it and store it. And I think that's what was underneath like I said before, underneath the Great Pyramids. And I think that's why you have the revival of the line of Cain after the flood. And Cush.
How did that happen?
Cush was one of the sons. So you had Noah's three sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Was it the line of Cain? Do you guys remember? I've got so much information I've stuffed in my head, bro. Sometimes it's like trying to figure out exactly, try to remember everything, just recall everything. But anyway, it was one of Noah's sons. The revival of the line of Cain comes out of that, if you ask me. And I think it's, Nimrod's a part of that. But Cush is certainly a part of that. And Cush moved to, he came up out of, I think, Ethiopia, and went up into Egypt and settled where Cairo is today. And it's like, why did he pick that location? I think he picked that location because that's where his ancestors stored their knowledge. And I think that one of the wives of Noah had the bloodline, was part of Cain's bloodline.
Okay.
And that's how it passed through.
That's been my question for a hot minute now, is how in the world did we end up with these entities after, giants and Nephilim and that kind of thing post flood? Because allegedly they were all killed. What happened?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've debated that too. I haven't really found an explanation that I like. I don't really like Heiser's explanation of taking Genesis 6:4 of when the sons of God came down and took wives of daughters and men, of taking that translation can also mean whenever. So it's not necessarily a past tense, it's also a future tense. I feel like if there was another transgression, it's like there would be some record of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't really seen any evidence that there was any type of record of another transgression. And then I've seen a lot where people think it was just like some type of genetic mutation.
Just random, just like a Darwin genetic mutation.
Well,
just all of a sudden,
no,
just,
that they were doing
demon.
that they were doing like DNA and genetic mutation to kind of spawn giants, post flood giants. Because correct me if I'm wrong, I think the wording for Nephilim changes for pre and post flood, like the word used.
It becomes Rephaim after the
Right,
flood.
right. And is there any? I don't know if there's any accounts that when the Rephaim died, they produced demons, because it's like they were all bound to. They were also all bound to Sheol.
Okay, here I pulled this up. This is the part I was blanking on a minute ago. I just want to make sure I had it right. So you have Noah's son Ham. Ham has Cush and Canaan. Canaan is where you get the Canaanites.
Right.
And that's where you get the revival of the Nephilim after the flood, or as you said, the Rephaim.
Right.
So that serpent seed bloodline had to have survived somehow.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming it came through one of the wives of Cain, or wives of Noah's sons. Because think about it. I think Cain was before Abel, right? So, but either way, Cain is one of the first humans.
Yeah.
Adam and Eve, Cain and Abel. I'm assuming Cain is the big brother. I should go back and look that up and make sure. But in that case, it would make him the third human.
Yeah.
By the time you get to Genesis 8, Genesis 7, and 6 even, you're not that far removed from Cain. So the women alive on earth at that time are definitely, some of them are definitely going to be related to Cain. You just got, all you do is math on that.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that at least one of the wives of Noah's sons was Cain, part of Cain's lineage, and that's how this bloodline slipped through. Had to have been, if you ask me. But that's my opinion. And Cush had Nimrod. And that's when I talk about the symbolic revival of the line of Cain, I'm talking about Nimrod.
Yeah.
He was like Cain reincarnate. He was like Aleister Crowley, the most wickedest man in the ancient world.
Yeah.
These guys had far since departed from the ways of the righteous father Noah. And Nimrod is the embodiment of that and all the evil surrounding that. And that's Cush had Nimrod, and Cush is the one who went up into Egypt and settled the region where I think all these tablets were. So I think they just reconnected with their bloodline.
Went back to their roots, so to speak.
Yeah. The post-flood bloodline reconnected with the pre-flood bloodline. And they were able to reconnect with the knowledge and with the Nephilim religion. But it's confusing because where did that serpent seed start? Did it start with Cain? Or did it start at our Genesis 6 event where the Watchers came down?
Right.
That's up for debate, if you ask me. But, and I forgot to mention this, but I do think that the Nephilim bloodline merged with the line of Cain. So at some point, it doesn't even matter.
Yeah.
They merged.
Yeah.
Now, what makes you say that? I'm curious.
I'm trying to remember where we pinpointed this. It's on a show I did with Doc Brown and with Steven from Biblical Hitmen.
Okay.
I think it may have been Nama. They think Nama was a daughter of one of the Watchers, or something like that. I don't think. Don't take my word for it. But at some point, we pinpointed it where the line of Cain breeds with the Nephilim.
Okay.
I'd have to go back and really find that moment though.
But if that's the case, that makes a lot of rational sense just for the story, the way it seems to play out across the course of, Genesis 3 through, the rest of the Bible, I guess. But this whole idea that the two bloodlines kind of merge instead of just decimating one or the other, and we have this kind of, I don't know, a legitimate way for it to kind of carry through the flood, as opposed to just we wiped them all out. No, they're here again. I don't know where they came from. Like they sprung out of the ground, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
And so if that's the case, that makes a lot more sense. I think just me
Mm-hmm.
reasoning it out right now in real time.
Oh, and here's that legend I was talking about. Is an Aztec legend that Quetzalcoatl was created when his mother swallowed a piece of jade, like a fruit or a seed, little piece of jade. And so what the Maya would do, um, after that, I think they picked up on a tradition. They would drill little holes in their teeth and put pieces of jade in their teeth because it symbolizes the bloodline. And my question is this Cain lore? If we were to go with Doc Brown's theory, and the fruit wasn't a fruit, it was in fact a sexual act. What if it wasn't a sexual act like we think of sexual acts today? What if her partaking in the tree of knowledge of good and evil was like taking a metaphysical fruit or stone or gem or something and taking it, and that's what gave her Cain?
Yeah, a metaphysical load, so to speak. Yeah, I don't know
Yeah,
how else to say
exactly.
that, but like essentially,
fair enough. Yeah.
Maybe she ate of the fruit and spawned the fruit of the tree,
Yeah.
and the tree was closely related to Satan or a Hasatan figure, as we do see in the Bible. That's in Ezekiel 31. I can show you that. Ezekiel 31, where it talks about Asher, and it's a long chapter, but it kind of follows that pattern we were talking about earlier, where it's, well, here I'll just say,
yeah.
it's talking about this entity that's in the garden, and it's relating him to a tree.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna see if I can find a good place to start it here, but
So that almost sounds like there are all these legends of like dryads and hamadryads in like old, especially like where's the area? It's not Norse. It's over there around Europe,
like
Western Europe.
the Tuatha De Danann and the Irish stuff.
Yeah, that almost sounds kind of like that.
Yeah. So here you go. No tree in the garden of God was like it in beauty. Starting with verse 8. I made it beautiful with its massive branches, the envy of all the trees of Eden that were in the garden of God. Therefore, thus says the Lord God, because it towered high and set its top among the clouds, and its heart was proud in its height, I gave it into the hand of the prince of the nations. He has dealt with it as its wickedness deserves. I have cast it out. Foreigners from the most terrible of nations have cut it down and left it. On the mountains and in the valleys, its branches have fallen, and its burrows lie broken in all the water. And the peoples of earth went away from its shade and left it. So it goes on, but it says, thus says the Lord God, on the day it went down to Sheol, I closed the deep over it and covered it. I restrained its rivers, and its mighty waters were checked. Now, on its fallen trunk settle all the birds of the air, and among its boughs lounged all the wild animals. All this is in order that no trees by the waters may grow to lofty height or set their tops among the clouds, and that no trees drink water, reach up to them in height. So what I gather, and then at some point in this verse, I should have started earlier. Sorry about that. But early on in the chapter, it says, well, as it's introducing this tree, it says, who is like you in your greatness? Consider Assyria, the cedar of Lebanon. And it goes on to compare this to this entity. And what I gather from this is that there were, you know how the Tartaria people always talk about these giant trees.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think
Yeah.
that was maybe a thing, because it sounds like
Right.
in the in the Garden of Eden there was
Yeah.
a giant tree that its top, what does it say here? Its top reached the clouds,
Yeah.
and then it was corrupted somehow, and God cuts it down. But it's associated with Satan.
And that,
And
wow,
and Garden of Eden. So it's like Satan had a tree in the garden. It was like the source of his pride, and he got too proud. So was he the tree, or was he metaphysically connected to the tree? You know, we could have a conversation about what the actual connection was, but there is some sort of connection there. So did Eve partake in the tree and actually partake in an aspect of Satan and thus spawn his seed? That would be, that'd be the question, right?
Yeah.
A
that
question.
could be.
That's
Yeah.
interesting.
Well, and it makes me wonder because at least the way I read the Bible, and then in the context of a lot of mythology that seems to spring from, like, obviously the low-hanging fruit there, tree, is the Watchers, right? And like all the little g gods that appear to have come out of that, their spawn, their seed. And so I wonder then if perhaps there were, like, I don't know, tree-like entities with some of these almost deified sounding tree spirits that people talk. They're even in like the Chronicles of Narnia. Like C.S. Lewis talks about a lot of them in the Chronicles of Narnia, where he talks about like the trees moving here and there, the dryads and the hamadryads coming out when Aslan's around. They're in Lord of the Rings too. Like, and obviously the Tolkien and Lewis drew a lot from the mythology of particular areas. Like in Tolkien, it's the Ents, right? It makes me wonder if there's, I don't know, some tree spirits around.
Mhm.
Sounds very, very Colors of the Wind Pocahontas.
Yeah, it's interesting because also in that chapter, if you go a little bit deeper and start looking into the Hebrew and stuff, you see that
Mhm.
that tree in the garden, the name associated with it was Asher, which is where you get the word Assyria from. Assyria or Syria comes from the word Asher, which is an entity that they worshipped there.
Yeah.
So the whole place was named after this entity Asher, who
Yeah.
is very much like this Lucifer. It might just be Satan. It probably is.
Yeah.
And then across mythologies, what you start to see is that some of these other Elohim, I'll call them, the principalities, are associated with trees as well. Ishtar from earlier, she's associated with a tree in the ancient world. She had her own tree in the primordial sort of garden of earth in that myth. And then you have all these legends to this day, like Venezuela. They have Mount Romira, which is called the Mountain of the Gods, and it's believed to have been the tree of life. That's what the locals believe. It's a stump now. They believe like it's a mountain. We would call it a mountaintop with a flat top, but they believe that it's the stump of a giant tree that was a tree of life. And we start looking into this legend, and you realize that half the population of Venezuela practice the rituals involved with this goddess cult that believes in this. And it's all tied in with this figure called Maria Laenza. She's the goddess, and they go up to the stump of the tree of life and they do rituals to the goddess.
Wow.
And then you go into town in the local like metropolitan areas near this tree stump, and you see the statue of this goddess, and what she's doing, she's riding a beast. So you get the Ishtar tropes because Ishtar is always associated with the lion and riding the lion.
Right.
So it's this crazy tree stuff, but they believe that they have a giant tree that's been cut down there in Venezuela even. And people say that about the place up in out here in the West. There's one out there where they filmed Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind. You guys know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
The devils.
somewhere
Devils.
in Utah, or I think
It's Wyoming.
Yeah.
Wyoming. Okay.
I've seen pictures of it.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it's
What do they
called,
call
but
it?
I've seen pictures of it. Dang it.
Devil's Stump.
Something like that, yeah. I don't think that's far
Devil's
off. I think
Tower.
that's close. Yeah.
It's Devil's Tower. It's in Wyoming. And I mean that, dude, it looks like an old tree stump, a giant tree stump.
There are a ton of those out there. I've seen like
Yeah.
those collages of just like mountains or flat tops or whatever you want to call it, just stomp after stomp after. It's like it's like watching a group of paraplegics. It's like watching a group of amputees walk by. We've been heavy into the amputee stuff lately on Tuesday. Sorry. Yeah, they're all over the place. My best assumption is they're trees. My question then becomes like, how did these things turn into not tree? You know, we went from tree to not tree. We went from wood to rock. Kind of like, how did we end up with the petrified forest? Right? Like,
Yeah.
how did that go from tree to not tree?
Yeah, most of the legends talk about them being cut down at some point, usually by a god or a godlike entity. You've got the Yggdrasil tree from the Norse legends. I believe that was cut down, and a lot of them are tie in with flood legends. Like God sent a flood, cut down the trees, and
Right.
put the waters over the stumps. In fact, I mean, there's a part there in Ezekiel 31 where it's saying something kind of like that. So, but yeah, John, I don't know if I like went just totally off in left field and I didn't answer your questions about the serpent seed and all that. If I didn't,
no,
feel free to ask me again.
No, you
Do an instant replay.
definitely answered. I don't know. It's just
there's possibilities. Right?
yeah, there's a lot of possibilities, and I really go back and forth because like I don't know. You look at the cause, like what was considered the cause of like human depravity in Genesis 6, what caused the flood, and like contemporary Christianity will point to the fall, but that's not what Genesis 6 says, right? It has the prelude story and it points to the story of the Watchers, so it kind of just has me questioning, and it's like, where did this start then? Because that kind of leans it to start with the story of the Watchers. It's just there's a lot to unpack there of where this whole kind of seed war started.
Mm-hmm. I need to go back and listen to that episode I did with Doc and Steven, because I remember there's a moment in that episode where he makes, I think as Doc makes the link between the line of Cain and the Nephilim. But either way, I mean, we know that the Canaanites were Nephilim, and I'm assuming they were a line of Cain. Anyways, I could do a lot more work on really pinpointing that, but yeah, if it didn't start with, I'm for sure that it started with the Watchers, the Seed War,
right?
And I suspect that it started with Cain before that.
Yeah, that would make sense. That would make sense. Sorry, I'm having an epiphany moment over here. Gosh.
But it's all, I mean, it's all good. I think it's like good, clean fun. If you ask me, like, we're not over here, harming the doctrine of Christ or any of the other.
I mean, I just finished reading Reversing Herman by Michael Heiser, and in my opinion, you're kind of enhancing it. You're actually explaining the entire depth of the story of what Christ had to come here to do. To not like just have to, save humanity from their own sinfulness, but like save humanity from literal being claimed by lesser rebellious deities that had hold over them.
Well, I would argue people who because you do run into this whole thought process, especially out there in like the Bible Belt community, where you start talking about things like this and people immediately push back and they're like, oh my gosh, that's anti-Bible, anti-Jesus, anti-whatever it happens to be. I don't think that comes from, it's going to sound very mean and judgmental, but I don't think that comes from a spiritual place. I think that comes most of the time when people are having discussions like this and people push back and say, oh my goodness, that's borderline blasphemous. How dare you? I think it comes from more of a fear of like acknowledging how wild and supernatural and just insane a lot of this stuff that led from the creation of the world to where we are now really is, because that will absolutely decimate the worldview of most people who live and exist in the 501c3 system. It just will. Like your doctrine that used to agree with science and all the other just around you doesn't anymore. And so I think they attack it from that perspective, not because these discussions in any way harm the doctrine. I think you're right. I think they enhance that doctrine. But I think those attacks, I guess, of the practice of simply talking about these things, discussing them, just throwing ideas around, comes from that place of just fear, you know?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. Hey, have I been out of frame this whole time?
I don't think so. You look pretty centered.
Okay.
Oh, I think the map was slightly off frame. Yes, if that's what you're asking, the map was slightly off center.
No, the one off to the left.
Yeah.
Is that who sees that one off to the left?
But there's one off to the left.
Yeah, on my screen there's a little. I don't know. Never mind. It's like I've been looking at.
Off to the left. That he's talking about the vertical stream. That just that goes up during the live stream and it comes down. We just stream it to like the YouTube Shorts thing. That doesn't stay up public. We take those down once we're done.
Yeah,
just brings more people just scrolling YouTube into see the content.
Oh, man, we got 30 minutes. We got 2 hours into this thing, and like it's been.
I never pay attention to that. It's designed to just get people to the actual content.
Yeah, it's just a fun.
All right. Check this one out. I'll leave you with this one.
All right.
This is a lot to ponder. I think this one, this might be controversial, but I just think it's interesting. It's Genesis chapter 1, straight back to the beginning. Genesis 1, verse 26. Then God said, "Let us make humankind in our image, according to our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the birds of the air and over the cattle and over all the wild animals, the earth, every creeping thing that creeps upon the earth." So God created humankind in his image. When he says us, I'm not saying that there's multiple gods, but there may be a council.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Sure.
This gets into Heiser and the divine council and all that, but I think there's one. God is God; He's over all things. But there's an Elohim panel of angels, or just, I don't know if they're all angels. There's probably a different classification for them, but like a panel of other entities that were there, like the one I read earlier in Proverbs chapter 8, where it says she was there as a master worker. It's like he had a council, and I think I think that's what it's saying there in Genesis 26, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, just in my opinion, absolutely what it's saying, because it's like our traditional worldview has always been, well, that's the Trinity talking. It's God's just talking to himself, and
right.
That doesn't make any sense, and it doesn't really fit with anywhere else in the Old Testament where this type of plural Elohim comes up. Like, it doesn't fit with Psalm 82, doesn't fit with Deuteronomy 32. It doesn't fit. I can't remember where exactly.
What's the one in Psalms again, bro? That's what I was trying to remember.
Psalm 82 is also a divine council scene, but it doesn't fit where God actually. I can't remember well, but where it was some ruler in the Old Testament. The guy was basically saying, "It's like, you're done. Your rule is over." But he lets his divine council decide like how that gets administered, right? Of how they take out this this king. I wish I can remember. It starts with an A. No, it's a ruler. It starts with an A, and I cannot. Might have it written down somewhere, but I'll be looking for it all night.
Ahaz.
No.
Screaming Bible names that start with A. Yeah.
But there are multiple like divine council scenes across the Old Testament, and I don't really know how you explain those away without just accepting the language as it's written, you know, that, you know, these are little g gods, you know, plural Elohim.
Yeah, Psalm 82. This is one of the ones I was looking for earlier, and I'd forgotten the chapter, but it's God has taken his place in the divine council. In the midst of the gods, little g,
Yeah.
he holds judgment. Yeah. I mean, what I just don't know what else that could mean. I mean, I know that like you said, a lot of people hold to that's the Trinity. I guess that's what they would apply to this as well. They would try to apply that this is God, you know, Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit. But
Yeah, I think that's at least in like the tradition we have around here. That's the way people teach it. Yeah, constantly. And I don't know how the thing that bothers me is how did we make it to that point where we essentially read through this, because I've read through the Bible 2 or 3 times. We read through this and like at least for me, you reach a point where, because like you over the course of us doing this show, people constantly say things where I'm like, I know I've read that. I've never, like, it's never occurred to me what that actually means. We read through it and the language doesn't, like, it's almost like the language doesn't make sense. It doesn't hit home. How have we made it to that point?
Yeah, I'm trying to find, this is driving me nuts, that connection that Doc made, but I'll find it later. Yeah, man, it's interesting stuff. And then you get into the fall of Babylon and the split, the assortment that God makes. People are divided up, right? We know the story. Like they all start speaking a different language, and they get put into people groups apparently, and each group gets assigned a different principality, deity to rule over them.
Yeah.
And it was part of the verse I read earlier where God chose his portion, and it was Jacob and those people. He allotted them for himself, but these other people went out under the rule of these other principalities.
Yeah.
And that's in that verse. I gotta find this again and remember. I have to go back through my notes, but the one dealing with Hezekiah, it's God is addressing Hezekiah, the king. I think he's Assyrian, and he does the switch, you know, and he starts addressing something else, and he says, she hates you, Israel. And I think he's talking about this ruling principality over Hezekiah, who he's referring to as a female. So that gets into a whole other theological thing where I think that there are female Elohim. Right. That's what your Ashtoreth, Astarte, Ishtar thing is all about, is a female Elohim. And that's tough for people too, man. That's tough for people who do believe in divine counsel and everything. A lot of the stuff we talked about, there's a lot of people who are all in on that, but they cannot accept there being a female entity in the midst. They think these are all male. So
it's such an odd place to get stuck, I guess, for me. Like, yeah.
I had no idea we were going to talk about this, man. I would have gotten a couple notes together, so I have my verses.
We didn't either. It kind of goes where we kind of let just the conversations. Occasionally we'll have like a topic planned out, but like most of the time, like I'll write down some show notes just in case. But we let things head wherever, unless So that was fascinating. This may be one of the few I go back and listen to again just to remember and do more research. That was awesome. Thank you.
Oh yeah, man, that was a lot of fun. That's a lot of fun. Appreciate you guys having me on.
Yeah, appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah. Thanks so much. All right. Well, I guess we leave it there.
Was that it? Did you want to bounce anything else off the wall before we get out of here?
Man, the only other thing I feel like would probably take longer. We'd be here till midnight. Because I wanted to ask you a couple of questions about like old America and some of the national parks and like some of these underground cities, mountain cities, all that. And
Wait, part 2.
yeah, we
do-
yeah.
do
If
part
you're
2
if you're game for it, we may try to have you back on to tackle that discussion because I feel like that'll
Sure.
be a lengthy one.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, send me a message and just remind me about that topic, and I'll we could do that, man. I mean, I've got stuff for days on that. All the stuff that we talked about today is wrapped up and deeply involved with the foundation of this country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Down to the surveys that people were going out and doing, like these Lewis and Clark. We talked about them, I think, before the show. Like, it wasn't just them. George Washington was a surveyor. They were going out and looking at mound sites and mapping everything out. They were aware of all the ancient ruins that were here. They knew all the stuff that was left out of the history books. And then you start looking at the sites. And this is something I've been looking into lately. And I'll end it with this. And I'll just, this is something we can get into at another time. But there's all this goddess stuff on the sites.
Ooh. Really?
Yeah. Yeah. The goddess world order made it over here way before Columbus. So I think there were Nephilim over here, then in the midst of the mound builders, and the mound builders themselves, they were goddess worshiping mound builders. You go down the Etowah mounds and there's goddess symbology down there. That's just one, for example, off the top of my head. What the mounds in West Virginia, like Grave Creek Mound, they found tablets in there, had Phoenician on there. Phoenician, they're Canaanites.
Yeah, that's wild.
So that
That's
means
crazy.
the Nephilim Canaanites were over here in West Virginia, and they brought their goddess worship over here with them. And by the time you get into the 1700s to George Washington's time, he's going around surveying all these sites, taking note of all this, and he's aware of all this. So yeah, we could do a whole thing on that.
Oh, that's so fascinating. Yeah. It's never occurred to me how many of them did get into surveying before their political careers. They just happened to do that as a passing. Yeah.
He had Serpent Mound taken care of by his neighbor. George Washington's neighbor in Virginia, he sent up to Ohio and had him watch over the Serpent Mound property. Like for some reason he wanted it taken care of. And George Washington, he may be the reason why the Serpent Mound is still there and it wasn't destroyed like a lot of other things are.
Right.
Jefferson was aware of all this stuff too. Ben Franklin, that old occultist, he was involved. So yeah, man, we could have a lot of fun talking about that stuff.
Ooh, I'm getting excited just thinking about it. Yeah. All right. That sounds like a plan.
Yeah.
Sweet. All right. Well, thanks again for doing this. We really appreciate it. This has been a blast.
Yeah.
I guess let the people know where they can find you again.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you guys having me on. It was nice to meet you officially, and just great chat today. I love where it went, and hopefully everybody enjoyed it. You can find me at Six Sensory Podcast. I spell it out SIX. I'm on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, and I have an Instagram and I have a Patreon where I drop new episodes every week. But the best place to find me is Six Sensory Podcast at Spotify. Come on over and check things out. If you like this conversation, there's a lot more over there like this. So yeah, appreciate you guys having me. It's been a real privilege to come on here and talk to you.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much for doing it, taking the time. Sweet. All right, folks. Well, thanks for listening. Catch us every Tuesday for Touch Me Tuesdays on all the platforms. And we'll be going live a little bit shortly after the show. I keep forgetting about that.
Yeah, exclusively to
Patreon for those of our Patreon subscribers. So I think that link is in the Patreon, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So
not sure when we'll get over there, but Carson and I will get over there at some point.
Right. So we'll be over there later. Yes. All right. Well, Tim, thanks again. And we'll catch you folks on the next one.